If you're a high-achieving woman who's exhausted by stress, stuck in constant conflict, and tired of being overlooked in the exact rooms where you know you were born to lead, then this podcast is for you. So here's your host, Pallavi Jain.
Welcome, my friends. We're about 32 weeks into this podcast journey, and I just want to pause for a moment and say thank you. To those of you who listen every week, who send messages, who share how these conversations are helping you navigate work, leadership, and life, I see you. And I'm deeply grateful for this community we're building together. And to those of you who are new here, welcome to Her Boss Brain. This is a space where we learn how to activate our boss brain, the ability to be on self-start, even when life and leadership feel messy, uncertain, or overwhelming. We do that using the lead from within philosophy and the ATM framework. Arrive in the moment, take responsibility, and make conscious choice. Today, I thought we'd do something a little different. Over the past few months, I have received several thoughtful questions from listeners. Some of them were so powerful that I realized the answers might help many more of you. So today, I'm going to walk through a few of those questions, right? Why not? And just reflect on them with you, almost like we're sitting here together having a conversation. And before I dive in, one small request. If this podcast has been helpful for you, take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. It helps this message reach more women who are navigating pressure, leadership, and growth. All right, then, let's jump in. Okay. Question number one. I love this podcast and the practical advice you share. Well, thank you. However, often as a CEO, the ATM framework feels almost too simple to my brain. How do I build conviction in it? This is such an honest question, and I love it. Let me gather my thoughts. So, our brains are actually wired to trust complexity more than simplicity. If something sounds complicated, full of jargon or highly technical, our brain automatically assumes this must be powerful. But real transformation really comes from complexity. It comes from clarity and repetition. Think about the moments that actually bring meaning to your life, right? Like a child hugging you, a deep conversation, a quiet moment of clarity after a long day, that aha you get, that idea, a hot sip of coffee while reading a book in the morning. None of those are complicated, yet they are powerful. They work. The ATM framework was intentionally designed to be simple because when you are under pressure, you don't have time or the luxury for a 7-step complicated system. You need something you can access in seconds. Arrive in the present moment, take responsibility for your response, and make a conscious choice. That's it. And the fact that you notice your brain questioning it is actually a good sign because it means you're observing your brain rather than blindly believing it or identifying with it. Your brain's job is to question. Your job is to practice. And the more you apply ATM, in small everyday moments like conversations, decisions, reactions, the more your conviction grows. And eventually something interesting happens. You stop thinking about the framework and conscious leadership becomes your default. Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing. And thank you again for this question. Now let's read the next question here. Okay, I'm doing a lot of self work, but people around me haven't changed. And honestly, they don't even seem to recognize the effort I'm making. It's discouraging. I smile there because this is one of the most common experiences on any self growth journey. So, first of all, you're not alone, okay? Because this is what happens. You start reading, reflecting, practicing new habits, you're becoming aware of your reactions, trying to communicate better, trying to pause before responding, trying to really figure out what is it that truly matters to me. And then you look around and you think, why is everyone else still behaving the same way? And why does nobody even notice the work I'm doing? Right? I know that feeling is real because when we're putting in genuine effort to grow, a part of us hopes that others will see it, acknowledge it, maybe even appreciate it. But here's a key shift for you. Self leadership is not something you do to change others. You do it to change the quality of your own inner state, your clarity, your emotional stability, your productivity, your decision making. But the moment our growth becomes dependent on whether others recognize it, we have unknowingly handed our power back to external validation, right? Maybe from the back door. And that can become another trap. Leadership from within asks a different question. This really helps me, and I'll share it here. Did I show up today in alignment with who I want to be? That is the real metric, right? And that is the real question to ask, because now there is also something important happening neurologically that I want you to understand. Your brain has a negative bias. It remembers criticism and lack of recognition much more strongly than positive moments. So even when small shifts are happening around you, your brain may filter them out. That's why you have to consciously notice and savor positive experiences as well, the small ones. A good meeting, a moment of appreciation, a meaningful conversation, a situation where you responded more calmly than you used to. And you will notice that first, not others, because you can feel the storm inside. And instead of still, even that being present, and you're still making a conscious choice of being responsible for your response. So when you pause and really absorb those moments, you begin creating new neural pathways. And over time, you stop measuring your growth by who noticed it, and you start recognizing the quiet internal shift within yourself. And that is when you truly start leading from within. But be kind to yourself. This happens to everybody, okay? And just focus on what you can do in the present moment, one step at a time. And one more trap that I want to caution you, because I stepped into that, was also to make sure that you're translating the knowledge that you are gaining, that you're understanding, into real action. Because just simply reading more and more books, absorbing wisdom doesn't bring transformation. So don't get into that trap. It is really the small, consistent, conscious choices and actions that make the momentum happen, that make shifts happen. Well, hope that helps. Let's go to our next question. Question number 3, I think. Okay. I'm a type A person with long to-do lists. Hello, our high-achieving women. Sometimes I get so overwhelmed, exhausted, that I end up doing nothing. Well, another amazing question, because this is something that happened to many high-performing women, and it's closely connected to what I often call superwoman syndrome. The belief that you must manage everything perfectly. Career, home, family responsibilities, other things all at once. But the brain doesn't actually multitask. It task switches rapidly, so we think we're multitasking. But in reality, it consumes enormous mental energy. And that's why overwhelm then eventually leads to decision fatigue. So when that happens, I want you to go back to the ATM framework, arrive, pause and bring yourself back to the present moment. Take responsibility. Ask yourself, what actually matters today? What is in my control that I can do right now? Make a conscious choice. Pick one meaningful action that moves something important forward. Not 10 things, just one. And by the way, if you're completely stuck, because that happens too, then I think what you should do is change your state first by changing your surroundings. So maybe take a walk, just step outside, get some fresh air, call a friend. Just talking to a friend for a few minutes completely changes how you're feeling. Listen to some uplifting music. Because what happens is a small shift in your physiology can completely reset your mental state. Then I want you to come back and start with the easiest 2 tasks on your to-do list. Because momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. And one more thing, I think I should share this because we have some listeners who may not have heard to this information before, that burnout is highest among mid-career women, especially those juggling work and caregiving. Now, don't get me wrong here. Many men are in the same boat. We are just living in a very overstimulated and exhausted world today. But when we look generally, women are more stressed and it impacts their health more critically because they internalize stress. Data shows that women get more autoimmune diseases because of internal struggle and holding on to these emotions, whether it's pain, resentment, stress, guilt is a really big one that triggers their SNS on a constant basis. So the question worth asking yourself in those moments is, are you trying to prove your worth to someone else? or to yourself. And also watch your busy language. Shift from I'm so busy to I'm prioritizing. Your words have power. And lastly, ask for help. Not everything needs to stay on your to do list. Remember, asking help does not mean you're weak, it means you're strategic and human. And assuming someone should know what I need help with, that is one another big trap. I'll say that again. Don't assume someone else should know what I need help with. Simply ask without attacking the other person. That's where your power lies. Okay? I hope some of those things help. And then now let's take one more question for today. Okay, let's take this one. Pallavi, I love your podcast and what intention you bring to the conversation. I also admire the amazing guests you bring to the show. Well, thank you so much. I'm so inspired by all you amazing women. Well, that's the point, right? So here's the question. However, I realize now that I might be addicted to stress. How do I break that cycle? Well, first of all, thank you for that lovely note and congratulations for recognizing that pattern. Now, for those of you who may have not listened to the episode on stress addiction, let me quickly explain that and then I'll get back to your question. Is every time basically your phone rings or something happens, your heart rate spikes. Every deadline, every tough meeting, your system floods with adrenaline and cortisol. And over time, your nervous system stops asking, is this good for me? And starts asking, where's my next hit? You see the difference? That's stress addiction. Now, one of the biggest obstacles that creates stress is when we blame others. And then we feel sorry for ourselves, like a victim blaming others. Remember, it takes you away from control. And it is easy to give yourself excuses that you're not doing it because of this person or the situation. So first and foremost, take responsibility of your life and be your own architect. Responsibility is not blame. It is ownership of your inner state. Okay? And then when you notice your mind replaying the same complaints, frustrations, pause and bring attention back to the present. Those old stories rule your brain. If you don't keep playing them, they will lose their grip on you and stop pulling you in those same feelings and experiences that created stress in the first place. Okay? And now let me share 2 specific tools that help break the cycle once you are in stress addiction mode. Number 1 is create calm exposure for your nervous system. What do I mean? Well, when someone is used to constant stimulation, calm can actually feel uncomfortable. So the goal is to train the nervous system to tolerate calm again. And simple ways to do that is, again, sitting in silence for 5 minutes without your phone, take a slow walk without listening to anything, eat one meal without multitasking. And at first, the brain may feel restless. That's normal. You are rewiring your nervous system to recognize calm as safe, not boring. The second thing you can do is reduce your micro stress triggers. Many people think stress addiction comes only from big problems, while in reality, it's often hundreds of tiny stress triggers during the day, those buzzes and tabs that you keep open in your head. Example like constant email checking, phone notifications, switching tasks every few minutes, scrolling endlessly on social media, consuming negative news all day. So a simple rule that helps is batch stimulation instead of constantly consuming it. Like check email 2 or 3 times a day instead of every few minutes. Turn off non-essential notifications. This reduces the brain's constant cortisol spikes. Okay. Actually, let me share something recent. This just reminded me of this thing that was happening a few weeks ago. So I am not a heavy Instagram user. I usually go there just to post small snippets from our conversation here on the podcast, right? But a few weeks ago, I noticed something interesting. I would open Instagram thinking, let me just check something for 2 minutes. Maybe I was thinking through an idea or taking a small break. And before I knew it, an hour had gone by. And this didn't just happen once, it happened several days in a row. And the interesting part was that I knew I was doing it, even in that moment. A part of me was aware that I was just scrolling mindlessly, but I still wasn't stopping. Then at the end of the week, when I was reflecting on my week, which I normally do, and I wrote down and I realized something shocking. I had spent almost 8 hours that week on social media. not creating content, not engaging meaningfully, just mindless scrolling. That's a full workday. But now, instead of judging myself, I got curious. What actually triggered this behavior? And I realized it was actually happening on days when I was feeling overwhelmed. My brain was simply looking for an escape. So I made a small change. Now, first of all, I go on Instagram once a day, and it's a timed thing. I just go for 15 minutes whenever I need to do something. And instead of random scrolling during the day, I've built in 20 minutes of real mental rest. Sometimes that may mean just sitting quietly, maybe lying down. Sometimes I listen to music. And the difference has been incredible. My midday productivity improved immediately because my brain was finally getting real rest instead of artificial stimulation. And now that the weather is getting better, my plan is to use those 20 minutes to actually step outside, get a nice walk, and just notice things in nature, really slow down and be present, as well as get some steps in. So the real lesson here is this: the goal is not to blame yourself or feel guilty when you notice these habits, because we all do that. The real power comes from noticing the pattern, understanding why your brain is doing it, and then replacing it with something that actually supports you in a healthy way. That is exactly what it means to activate your boss brain. You notice a pattern, you take responsibility, and then you make a conscious choice. Well, hope that helps. That was fun. I'm glad I remembered what just happened because it helps you see things in real life and give you a real example. And I love hearing from all of you. So please keep doing that. I have really enjoyed answering these questions today because the truth is, the questions you send are not just questions. They reflect the real challenges leaders are navigating every day at home, at work, the pressure, the expectations, overwhelm, self doubt, and growth. And what I hope this episode reminded you is that leadership doesn't start in the boardroom. It starts in the quiet moments of awareness and inner alignment. The moment you pause, the moment you notice a pattern, the moment you choose a different response. That is the essence of leading from within. Arrive in the moment, take responsibility, make a conscious choice. That is how we activate our boss brain, our ability to be on self start no matter what is happening around us. And the more we practice that, the more leadership stops feeling like something we perform and start becoming who we are. So if this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to do two small things. First, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss upcoming episodes. And if you have been enjoying these conversations, take a moment to leave a review. Those reviews help this message reach more women navigating leadership, growth, and pressure. And of course, if you have a question you'd like me to explore in a future episode, send it my way. I love hearing from this community. So until next time, remember, the most powerful leadership shift doesn't happen outside of you. It happens the moment you decide to lead from within. Take care, everyone.
So that's it for today's episode of our Boss Brain podcast. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in a grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 private VIP day with Pallavi herself. Be sure to head on over to her bossbrainpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Pallavi's gift and join us next time.